Well, thank you everyone for being here, and I am very honored to make this interview. This interview is with my doctor father, which is a person that I really admire a lot. He's an excellent human being, and he also has a lot of things to say for this interview. And first of all, I would like to introduce him. And for the people who are not into who don't know what means Dr. Potter. It's a word in German, but I really like it because the meaning is, well, you will see it, you will hear it in your translation, but it's basically the comparison in English is a supervisor, but for me it has been much more than that. He has been completely, like the word says, Dr. Father, Padre de Doctorado, or Doctoral Father, could be in English. And he has been completely like that for me. So first of all, I would like to introduce him. He is Jurguen Beckmann, who is an Emeritus of Excellence in the School of Medicine and Health at the Technical University of Munich. He's also honorary professor at the University of Queensland, Australia, and adjunct professor at the University of Limerick, Ireland. Doctorate and habilitated in psychology at the University of Mannheim, project manager at Max Planck Institute for Psychology in the field of motivation and volition. Other areas of expertise are social psychology, clinical psychology with a special focus on clinical hypnosis, exposure to nature, and psychocardiology. He's author of more than 250 peer-reviewed scientific publications and cited more than 9,700 times. So with all of this, I would like to start this interview. And yeah, thank you, Jurgen. Thanks a lot for being here.
My pleasure, Jimena.
Because you're an expert in this part of meaning in life, I would like to know, what is meaning in life?
Well, that's a very difficult question. In fact, many people have dealt with this question, have given different answers. So a general agreed upon answer is to have some purpose in life. Sometimes Viktor Frankl, who is the father of the third wave of psychotherapy, the third Viennese wave of psychotherapy with logotherapy, he has referred to, or is cited in English as having said, if you have a why in life, then that your life will be meaningful and help you to even deal and cope with the most unpleasant experiences and horrible things happening to you, as it was the case for him. He was in a German concentration camp. His wife and his child were killed in the concentration camp. So what worse things could you think of? So that's what he experienced, and he survived, he says, because he had this meaning in life, this experience, perception of meaning in life, and which in this case was always hoping to be reunited with his family, which in fact never happened. But he also says that meaning in life is more than just to have some goal, some kind of goal, or even more ultimate goals. He says it has to do with spirituality. So it has to do with feeling that you're a part of something larger than that, which gives life meaning. I don't exactly recall the quote from a Woody Allen film. I don't know which one that was. And he said, probably, as far as I recall, that love is the thing that gives you meaning in life. When you look at the stars and you know that you can give love and you're being loved, then that's a very important thing. And I think in essence that this is what Frankl also talked about when he referred to his family. wife and his child, and
Yes.
craving to see them again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's very interesting, and actually many thoughts came to my mind with all what you are saying, all what you were saying, but I want to know, how can we lose this meaning in life if it's very important to have it? How can we lose it?
The different ways to lose it. I mean, now you think that maybe your loved spouse dies or your child dies, then you'll be in a crisis and asking yourself, so what can I live for? And a lot of people, when you look at what they experience, is they have nothing in their lives. So they're all in debt. They don't have any positive on their accounts. So, and that's a major problem. And then to help these people is to find something that they find worth living for. So usually, and then the major question is, how can we prevent suicide? And one thing to do that is find out, is there anything left that they find worth living for?
Yeah.
And if it's the case, then when, for example, most of the time, if they have children, and can make a kind of contract, say like, so when you've decided to kill yourself, to commit suicide, and you're, let's say, sitting on the bridge and are about to jump down, and then the last thing then, and this is important, you need to think of your children. And we had one case where actually exactly the person was sitting on the bridge to jump down, and then this thought which he committed himself to think of his children came to his mind, and it became salient. And then he got off the bridge and did not commit suicide. He told me this story later on.
Wow.
So this is usually, children is something to live for, or your spouse or friend or whatever, maybe something you live for. Can be completely different. There are people like artists who live for creating something extraordinary. So that's their purpose in life. That's what gives their lives meaning. It could be that they want to create something, also scientists or whoever, that goes far beyond their mere existence on this planet. So there's a theoretical conception supported by a lot of empirical research by my friend Tom Pazinski in the U.S. And what he says, what people strive for is actually to be immortal. So the theory of research is called terror management. And so we all have to kind of cope with becoming aware at some point that someday we are going to die. And how do you cope with that? And to have meaning, something that may survive you even after your physical death, could be something. And that's for a lot of people, something that provides meaning. So if I create a piece of art that will be immortal, that gives me a lot of meaning. And to have that and experience that is something very important. Or it could be other things, like Mother Teresa, who is all the time trying to help people, to save people, dedicating her whole life to this idea. And that was certainly something that was completely or absolutely meaningful. And the opposite would be, and that's something you also sometimes find, is called void. My mentor, Eric Klinger, who is over 90 these days, his family survived the Holocaust. They had to escape from Austria. And he, as a child, he came to the United States, and he also dealt with this question of, and he wrote a book in 1976, I think it was, that's entitled Meaning and Void. So these are the opposite poles. And a lot of people experience, would then have psychological problems, that their life seems to be void. So I had the example of a football player, a very famous German football player, with the talent of the century. That's what he was called. And he reports that one day he was sitting in his apartment. He had this expensive car parked outside the apartment. He had a Rolex watch on his wrist, and he had a lot of money, but he felt completely empty. And the reason was that he believed that he was no longer in control of what gave meaning to his life. And that was a self-determined playing football. He wasn't allowed to do that. He was a professional. He was being paid for it, which, as we know, ruins intrinsic motivation. And there was a lot of control of his whole life as a person, which then ruined his perception of meaning in life. Instead, void occurred. And the question is, of course, how can you get rid of the void and restore meaningfulness in your life?
So if I see that I am understanding you, it's essential to have meaning in life, or is possible to live without a meaning in life?
Well, sometimes I believe that some people manage to do that, but when you talk about them, you always hear that they lack something. So they can engage in a lot of superficial activities in everyday life, but eventually they may end up to experience some kind of depressive episode or depression, because this perceiving meaning in life is essential. It is essential for our self-definition, something to live for.
Okay. So when we lose our health, when we have a loss of health, our meaning in life, I think that is kind of affected in that point, no? When we are struggling with the loss of health and we have a disease or we have faced an accident.
Well, according to the dual continuum model of Keyes and colleagues, not necessary. So you have the one continuum, which is health and illness, and you're always somewhere in between. There's never total health, and there's hopefully never total illness, but this is relatively independent of the other continuum, which he says to be orthogonal to the illness and health continuum. And that's the question of well-being. And as they have shown in several studies, it appears to be relatively independent. So there are people who are severely ill, but at the same time, when you ask them about well-being and the quality of life, they say, well, it's all right. I'm doing fine. And I said, what makes the difference is the perception of meaning. So if you have no meaning and at the same time you're ill, then you're struggling, then you have problems. But if you are ill, you experience illness, but at the same time, there's something you can live for that gives you meaning. Then you would say, yes, I'm chronically ill probably, but at the same time, I know there are lots of things I can do, I can live for that give a lot of sense in my life.
And reading a bit about your work, I found that recovery is an essential part of this meaning in life and the increase of well-being. So in this sense, I was also thinking why recovery is very important in finding your meaning in life.
Well, first of all, of course, we have to understand what we mean by recovery. In medicine, and also psychotherapy, when you speak about recovery, you think about healing, so restoring health. But this is not the whole story of recovery. Recovery is more than just healing. Recovery, in its most simple sense, refers to, in our definition, Michael Kellmann and my conception of it, it refers to, first of all, of course, if you're if you have exhausted your resources, you need to replenish them. So that's the first thing, but that's not all of it. So when you think of, for example, you go on holidays, on a vacation, it may be something you need for replenishing your resources, sure enough. So you may have felt completely exhausted after having to work for a long time and maybe over hours or whatever. And so you have to kind of restore, regenerate also in a way, and replenish your resources. But that's not all of it. Then if you have this prolonged period of vacation, so about 2 weeks. So first week may be about kind of filling up your empty stores, your empty resources. But the next week is more than that. And as Kellmann said, it's creating a buffer against future stress. So recovery is needed for or as a stress buffer, and you can build it up. So after the 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you may have then, through good recovery, come to the point where you have developed a buffer against stress, which is, in fact, you have created resilience to the stressors in your life. But of course, what is recovery? So people may think, and I had that, the people say we go on 1 week skiing vacation. And maybe that for one person, this is recovery. But for the other person, it may be stress, because anxiety may be involved and things like that. Or people go to German young people, but also older, but particularly males, go to Mallorca, however that's pronounced, and then spend a week of heavy drinking and whatever.
Yeah.
And they call that recovery. But in fact, when they come back, they need recovery.
Yeah.
But the first thing is that people need to understand what is recovery for me. So what is, it's usually a self-determined, meaningful activity. Can, of course, be passive, as sleep. Sleep is a very basic means for recovery, and is, of course, also involved in healing, in a lot of things. But then it's more than that. So there is active and proactive forms. There are active and proactive forms of recovery, which, for example, involve doing something meaningful, which can be playing music, can also be listening to music, can be painting something, physical activity, or what we've been dealing with and we're dealing with right now also a lot of times is particularly physical activity in nature, and which is sometimes referred to green exercise. I don't like the term exercise in that context too much. It's just, it's important. It's not like running through a park. It's a great movement in the UK, park running. Well, it's good because it's physical activity and it's outside in the nature. But one very important thing is that you need to become connected to nature.
Yeah.
So if you're not fully immersed in the nature activity, it's not really that useful. So only if you use all senses to actually perceive nature, experience nature, then it becomes something that is very helpful in building up recovery resources, in building up resilience. And we're using that with, for example, cardiological patients who usually have problems finding a recovery, who usually have problems even with their own body, because to them it's something that they, if they pay attention to their body, it's kind of producing anxiety, because I hear my heartbeat and then I worry, is it actually going to stop or something or whatever? And so green exercise is very helpful in these cases, but only If it's moderate exercise, just like walking, more is not good for these patients, but that's completely sufficient. Plus, then involve all your senses: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustative. And that's what we try to do. And you see, this here comes another psychotherapeutical perspective into the whole picture, which is mindfulness.
Yeah.
Because you have to be mindfully aware of nature and see nature, see the structure of the trees, of the forest, see the ocean, maybe see the stars in the sky, and then hear, listen to nature talk, hear the birds, hear the wind, probably hear the ocean, and kinesthetically feel the wind on your skin, in your face, or the sun on your face, which is very important in a lot of cases. We use the experience of the warmth of the sun in relaxation techniques, for example. And then olfactory, can you smell the forest, for example? Can you smell the ocean? Things like that. Gustative is a bit more problematic, but particularly when at the ocean, you can even taste the ocean, salty taste of the ocean. And in the forest, you might also find it tastes differently. So use all your senses. And so the first green exercise experience is usually keep silent, just be in this place, and then use all your senses to experience nature. Of course, you can enrich that. For example, what you might do in the morning, you might have people walk through in a wet meadow with barefooted, and then they have this experience. So there are lots of things you can do that are not exactly the kind of physical exercise that you might think of. But anyway, the combination of sensory experience with some kind of movement is very important. Has proven to be very effective in building up resources, resilience resources, as well as, in fact, healing some problems.
Yeah, you actually started giving us a hint about one of the questions that I had, that was, how can we recover meaning in life? And what I got from what you have said also is that we can do that connecting with nature. No, one of the ways how we can get this meaning in life is by connecting with nature. And apart from that, other question came to my mind, that is, why it has an impact identifying with the diagnosis that you already have, and how does this identification with your diagnosis can have an impact in your meaning in life?
Mm-hmm. Well, you can imagine the situation that let's say it's a clear night and you can see all the stars, and then a person looks at the stars and looks at the universe, and then all of a sudden, most people experience something like, well, I'm part of this universe, which is the spiritual experience. And at the same time, they realize my own problems are relatively small. I'm part of this really great thing. And all of a sudden, they kind of relax and say, yeah, it's something. What I experience is not trivial, but when I look at the whole picture, I will find a way to deal with it. So this could be a first step in a way. And of course, we haven't touched that yet, but for a lot of people, and something that Frankl in a way referred to when he spoke about spirituality is, of course, the faith you have. Mm-hmm. And faith is, of course, a word that has the two meanings. It's about religion, but at the same time, it says I'm trusting it that in a lot of things, and that's very important. And so religion can give you meaning because there is more to you, whatever kind of religion you have. So you're part of something larger, greater than yourself, and you believe that just because you have this existence, it's done by the Creator or whoever you refer to, and therefore they have faith in the meaningfulness of what the Creator wants to do with you. So spirituality in terms of religion is one thing for a lot of people, and we see that in empirical research, that people who have faith, that is, have a religion, are less affected by stressful events in life, can better cope with it. And so that refers to a kind of a meaning that people have. I just something else crossed my mind. I would forget about it again. So it's not only religion, but what is the other aspect of spirituality? Well, become part of the I mean, I mentioned. So you cut that out. I thought of faith, trust. This combination, trust, and what we interestingly see, there's lots of studies meanwhile by Kellmann in California and the United States, and they ran lots of studies where they had people just look at nature, and they measured their oxytocin, which is a hormone that creates trust. So higher levels of oxytocin give you more trust. And so you have a direct physiological effect of looking at nature in your body. And this is something that's very useful. So a lot of impact techniques that we have in psychotherapy work with getting some kind of an impact through some activity, which may be an insight or maybe just an experience. And sometimes what we really do to calm people down is have them watch nature.
Okay.
And then they can readdress the problems they have. So it's a kind of a reset in a way. So when you're dealing with trauma, it can be useful to give people at first some kind of positive experience, and then help them with this reset to look at the experience, a traumatic experience, that from a different perspective. And then also try to activate resources they have to help them cope with the situation. In some form of therapy that is done by having this person take an external position as an observer this person, something happening to him, and then you ask them, what can you tell this person that could help the person to cope with the negative traumatic experience the person has.
And just returning a bit to one of the topics that you were mentioning, because you were mentioning about the importance of religion or spirituality in this recovery, and also in getting in contact with your meaning in life, and also So my point here is, what happens with the people who don't consider themselves spiritual or religious? What happens with them?
I recall an old study about school teachers, where they found that the school teachers who had religion had less problems coping with the stress of the everyday life in school. Mm-hmm. So these others had more difficulty and were more prone to burnout, for example. So we know it's helpful, it's useful. And of course, we try to support these people, coach these people in different ways if they're not religious, well, some people believe in the universe or whatever, but others could be helped by giving them coaching in how to address problems in everyday life. So it's not necessarily religion, but it could be used to, it could be the mindfulness we spoke about earlier, which helps them to accept people. So we have commitment acceptance therapy, where we commit ourselves to certain courses, and part of it is accepting what is going on. And that's a major part in a lot of therapeutic approaches in people with chronic illness. It's very important that at some point they reach the point where they can accept that they have a chronic illness and not be completely absorbed by that chronic illness. If that is the case, there is no room for experiencing something else. And as we said, with the dual continuum model, so illness is one continuum, but the other would be meaning. And only if they accept that they have problems with their health, mental or physical health, they're open to then take the next step and find something that is meaningful for them. Okay. And usually you can help people to find meaningful aspects in their life, even though they're not religious. And usually it's family. It's family, it's friend. And we recently found in a very recent study that was published a month ago that social support is a major factor producing general resistance resources or resilience. And particularly the family is very important in that respect. So if you have, of course, we know how important bonding is from early childhood on. And if the children experience social support in childhood and later on, it's very helpful in developing a stable personality. Okay. And that's also very important. But also later on, the social support can help people to realize that they are part of a community which is supportive, which gives a lot of people, even though this is not a religious community, gives a lot of people the sense of belonging to something, which is very important for them and then is considered as being very helpful.
Yeah. I can say that for my personal experience as well. My family was also crucial for me, and they make everything different. So, well, thank you very much, Jurgen. I think that this conversation was just amazing, and it gives us a lot of input and knowledge about how to process in a healthier way a loss of health, and how meaning in life is very important. And one technique that you also mentioned, that is, or not technique, but one approach that you also mentioned that is very beneficial for people, is to connect with nature in order to recover this meaning in life and to improve their well-being while they are facing with a loss of health. So thanks a lot, Jurgen, and I hope I see you soon again.
My pleasure.